Time, space, gravity, particles, waves, key elements of physics, and also source of inspiration for artists as Eiji Sumi. Let's delve into the fascinating sci-art world of Eiji Sumi, who creates artwork for the future. I'm Julie Vexel. Welcome to the CIAC Talks Bangkok.
Something that fascinates me is like the wind or the water. I look at things and mesmerized with the view because I guess it's a part of the nature and the mystery of nature, like fires, for example. It's just a constantly moving and it's developed different forms with different energies or things go inside. And I just like the observation, I guess. Wind, for example, when you throw through the wind, when something is flying, also, is there anywhere I can see more detail of the wind, for example, or if the water, the ripple, for example, is there any other different way of seeing things? Something that we don't usually see. So I think it's just pure curiosity about those natures and maybe is there any new configurations of it. So I think it's quite instinctive in a way.
For example, gravity is central in some of your creations.
Yes.
Newtonic.
Newtonic, yes.
Yeah? How it was the process of creation of Newtonic?
Actually, there was the three themes that I wanted to work. First one I started work was a particle, and then gravity, and then currently I'm in the project of working in waves. So those fundamental elements of the science, I was curious, and Newtonic was a part of it. And is there any way we can control gravity? That's actually pretty basic desire for human. Through we couldn't fly, and now we can fly. So there's so many practice and exploration in the human history that we try to go against the gravity. If we can control the gravity in the future, like really much more in a detail, what kind of things artists will correspond to it. So I work with the 3D softwares. I like simulation, animations, and things before I go into physical work. Sometimes I kind of play with the simulation and see what kind of thing can be seen. And during that time, when I was looking at the 3D simulation of the gravity, I was like, something that don't have in the current technology we have. Is there any new configuration we can achieve? So, which we usually don't have multiple gravity. We don't have one. We have only basically planet Earth. They deal with one huge gravity. But what if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then can we choreograph that?
And gravity is present as well in the mechanics of the here and there. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Could you talk a little bit more about the essence and the concept about here and there?
Here and there as well was part of this gravity that I was interested. And but this work was coming a bit more societal issue, which I was the time that I was in. So that time in Thailand, there was no elections because of the government policy stopped these elections, and also the demonstration was prohibited. I'm not such an activist in a way that proactive in activist, but it was really shocking for me that there's no election. There was an impact in me it was a big shocking event. So I start to formulate that idea of is there any way we can talk about this election, how to visualize the election in using a gravitational, because it's there is a pivot of the pivot point that when the gravity moves to the left or right. So that's quite similar with the elections. So
kind of duality.
Yeah, duality. And also, speaking of which, those conflict between American politics between Republican and Democrat, and the whole world was divided by two elements, two sides, and they don't talk each other. That really bothers me a lot. In this society, we have different opinions, but I'm so used to talk and argue with different opinions, because it's not fun things maybe, but it's just normal thing to constructive conversation. But a lot of times, when I say some of my opinion, those people stop talking to me, or there's many events, and I imagine not only me, but there's a lot of situation in America, Thailand, Europe, everywhere. So I was trying to create against this issue. So is there any way we can still move, talk, and change? So this kind of a context with the part of the gravity. And my interest was, I wanted to create some work that something will influence the movement, even though I am not moving. So that was my interest. Someone else is controlling the movement. Even though I try to move it, still someone else is moving. But if I gathering up with some people, or some other people try to do this activity, they can change the shift. So this kind of the configuration, is there any way I can do it? And they're like, maybe seesaw, and make it in round. This way, it will create this kind of a gigantic seesaw that influence people's, the small microcosm of the society. I included a tilt sensor, and because I'm into the digital art, so I would put this tilt sensor which changes the color, and it moves with the tilt sensor. So if you want to change the color, you have to go to the other side. So a lot of times in the politics, a lot of parties or this side is usually represented by colors. So I kind of played this kind of context to it.
Fantastic. Very political approach, but it's very playful for the audience.
Yeah.
How was the interaction of the audience with the here and there?
It was really fun because really the strangers collaborate each other, because once somebody moves, or like some kids moves, run, and nothing happens. And then eventually, after 2 seconds of the silence, people stand up, move around it, and start to talk and collaborate to each other. And eventually they try to, like, all entire group try to balance. My intention was to go to the other side and change and talk, but in a way, surprisingly, a lot of times they try to collaborate. Hey, come this way, so that it totally balanced. Because when it's balanced, the entire structure, I mean the light of the is lit fully. So somehow they kind of figured it out without having any instruction that, when once it's balanced totally, light is fully lit up. So a lot of people think, that's the best way of the configuration. And in a way, what I was trying to do is also similar that, because we need a balance in this world. so that was
it was a metaphor.
Metaphor.
You put quantum physics
Yes.
in art. It's the case of Quark.
I like technologies and how we develop the new technology, because it's a digital art has a lot of chance because of the new technology happens. We have another new opportunity to be able to create something new. But technology in science is very linked together. And I am generally like to read or watch things happening in the universe and how science is trying to find out a new fact. So, I mean, gravity, black holes, quantum physics, I mean, all those many things I'm just curious to see those elements in the daily basis. I was also already into the lighting. So light is all about waves and photons and particles and those theories. So it was very natural for me to make these topics and try to how to visualize in our present time. So I wanted to make something physical, and I tried to use particle. Of course, dust flies. I mean, the particle is flying right now. If we want to see it, if we want to see it, there's a way to see this particle with very like low temperatures, and we can try to. There's a way to visualize it, but is there any way we can less costly and less easily to be able to audience to see it? So I try to use the wind. Basically the air dynamics to float up this particle and use the light to visualize that. During that time of the COVID, so I generated a work in simulation, computer simulation. That was really like the new way to like expand this concept of democratizing the Zen garden out of Japan and make it accessible to everyone. Start from this like quantum physics, wave theories of the light and things like that. Then it goes to the wave, and then wave become, and I try to create a garden, then through the Zen garden, come back to the universe. And so it was a sort of the journey that from science, universe, our human ideals and human fears and all those things kind of merged into it. Maybe not too long of the story, but I'm trying to create basically the wave garden, digital wave garden using an actual wave generator and creating another new way of seeing a wave in the gallery, and try to kind of democratize this Zen garden out of Japan, because I'm not living in Japan such a long time, but I think after all, I cannot run away from this Japanese culture.
From your roots?
From my roots, and then that kind of like formulated to work in creating a new Zen garden in the gallery.
Over the years, what's the role played by digital technology in the process of your creations?
I wouldn't say myself geeky, like very geeky digital artist. Every time for me is the idea comes up. Every time I was just jumping into it without having a sort of fear, sort of like dive into the things that I don't know how to do it. And eventually that becomes more and more habit that I'm becoming used to this jumping over the cliff to get some the visualize or to create artworks, because also like David Bowie had interview back in the days when I look at it, he says, "Oh, the best work I have ever made was always the when I feel this risk, whether can I land it safely or not." And this tension create the best work, something like that David Bowie was talking about. Doing that without knowing that, but after I hear the David Bowie, oh yeah, sure. And so that becomes part of my practice. I'm addicted to this cold water. So I need the risks, and I need a little bit of tension for me to create artwork. So I don't know whether it's going to be successful, not successful. So I'm taking a sort of a risk.
Reveal the invisible.
Yeah, revealing invisible. Yeah, that's actually quite a big topic for me. Something that we haven't seen in the normal life. That's something that I'm fascinated to see. Doing art is almost a similar, right? Because like we all are, I think, like there's always normal constraint of the life that we are in, and everyone wants to be in that rules or constraint. But art practice is to get out and do something, other thing that no one is trying to do. So it's a very, very organic process for artists to do, in my opinion.